what's up, everybody? My name is Tony Shira, and I welcome you to my chat live right now. This is just a little clip that I felt that I needed to do regarding something that is trending in Kenya. This is under the Trending Jamhuri series that I am putting out together, and I want you to listen to this soundbite just before I proceed.
Brian Chira. Of course, I'm Brian Chira. I don't have money, but come away, see pesa, with any pair stress. Of course, I'm Brian Chira. Nikki Sota, tap the screen, send roses. Nanya kona money gun. Of course, I'm Brian Chira. I always want attention. Nani Talia.
Yeah, so this little conversation that I'm about to have with myself about the passing on of Brian Chira is one that is focused on just the whole vibe about what's going on in Jamhuri. So the first thing that caught my attention is that we, first of all, must appreciate that Brian Chira was a big name. And I know some people have come out to me to ask me if I'm related to him. No, I am not. But the sound of the name Chira, mine is Tony Shira. So, and I like the way he used to make his introduction. I am Brian Chira. I am Chira, Brian Chira, or something like that. It used to rhyme nicely. But God rest his soul in peace. But one thing that has caught my attention, which is what has brought me to having this conversation, is as a country, has Kenya really appreciated the fact that now the youth have really taken over the space? Because, previously I've been thinking TikTok is just another thing, a lot of us, we think that, it's just one of those things, like the way Instagram came up and people started saying that, hiyo ni kitu ya watoto, it's just something for the little ones. And then all of a sudden it blew up into the space and everybody's on Instagram, and even corporates now started incorporating Instagram as part of their communication tools in media. And of course, I remember a time that we used to talk about Instagram models, which is something that took over from what traditionally was the modeling industry. Like we used to do portfolios and we would share comp cards, go to companies and showcase our work so that our models would get jobs. And then suddenly emerged a new generation of models who did not need to actually go to the client. They became what later became the influencers. And that culture has picked up and grown so fast that it forced corporates now to start making what is now called endorsements. And this has been propelled forward in a very, very exponential way by the emergence of TikTok. I do know I was in TikTok a long time ago when it came out, just those days when it came out. But then again, it just looked like it was nothing that is going to make any sense. And so I kind of let it go and continued with Facebook. And then later on, it just blew up in the space. But today, as we speak, TikTok is actually a sensation. And it is unfortunate if you've not caught up with the system. I am on TikTok at Tony. So if you're in there, just follow me. And I'm not there to just observe. I want to play in that field. But it is so interesting that the younger generation, the Gen Z especially, which is the group in which late Brian Chira belonged to and in which he was actually a king, so to speak, has taken over that space. And so fitting in there is actually a challenge, for some of us who were probably a little slow to keeping up with the pace. I'm not suggesting that there aren't people in my age, over 40s, who are doing well on TikTok. They are. But those are probably some of the outliers, the people that, went on with the program when it came up. But my concern today is about how the whole issue of the passing on of Brian Chira has been handled. First of all, it's the controversy surrounding the death. We all know that he had a problem with alcohol, which is something that I do not wish for any young person, and I discourage any of the young people out there, even the old people, to keep away from, or even if you have to exercise extreme control over what you do with alcohol, how you use it. But Chira had a problem, and it was obvious because he didn't even hide it. The first time I heard about Brian Chira was when he had an altercation in which he kind of insulted Aziad, the dancer, the entertainer. I don't know what to call her, but he said some derogatory things about her, and she went to court, and now it became a whole thing. From that time, I watched his conversation with Andrew Kibe, and I mean, you can tell the issue going on with him as a young person and the battles he has to fight. One, having been HIV positive, something that he wasn't hiding, and of course also talking about his challenges in school, raising fees and getting the money to survive, being an orphan, and being brought up by his grandmother. I mean, all that combines to actually create a very, very difficult situation for a young person, or any person for that matter. But more than that, it also propelled him into becoming a big sensation on social media, such that he actually became like a king of TikTok. And I have seen a few of his interactions. I didn't keenly follow him because as I said, I haven't been very, very strong and vibrant on TikTok until just recently. But I also encountered his interactions with Nyako, who is also a big TikTok sensation, and then also saw some of his comments about Baba Talisha, who I learned of just most recently. But all in all, it is the following that Brian Chira had that brought so many of these Gen Zs to one common space in which they created a community that I am calling the Kenyan TikTok community. And this Kenyan TikTok community, therefore, when Brian Chira passed on, has been very, very instrumental in whatever happened in between then and now as we speak, just one day after his burial. So 2 steps back, look at the circumstances around his death. It is said he had been drinking. It is said that he left the place and he was trying to get a lift, and then a boda guy didn't want to give him a lift, and then some people said that he was they tried to put him up on the boda and he kept jumping off, so he didn't want to take the ride on a boda, and apparently, or as it is said, again, all these allegations, it is said that he actually got a ride in a car, but then he turned out not to have gotten wherever it is that he was supposed to go. Then there's the question on his phone, which apparently he didn't have, and then suddenly the stories come out that he was thrown out of a moving car. Then suddenly, another car ran over him, and I mean, I've listened to so much of all of this, and it sounds crazy. Now, you can imagine the whole entire TikTok community ganging up, to give views and, their versions of what they think happened. That can be overwhelming. And one of the things that stood out today as I was, going through the interwebs, which I do pretty often, is the conversation between KOM, the new Kenya Online Media, previously, Eve Mungai, Mungai Eve show, with Shiko and Truth Watchdog. In that conversation, Truth Watchdog states that he doesn't believe that Brian Chira died out of an accident. He says he believes that he was murdered. Well, I don't know if it is part of what some people have talked about as cloud chasing, or using Brian Chira's death to, gain followers, a lot of, and all of that stuff. But and then he also went ahead to speak about hurried way in which the burial was conducted without thorough investigations. According to him, he says that there should have been more investigation into what actually killed Brian Chira, because he says it's not an accident. I mean, you can always go to Truth Watchdog or KOM and see the interview and hear what he had to say about it. Now, that was a day before the burial. And he also talks about, a phone that was bought, the money that was raised. I mean, a whooping 8 million was put together towards preparing the burial. And of course, I mean, people also said they would contribute to build the grandmother house, something that apparently Brian Chira had indicated that he would want to build. Now, fast forward to the burial yesterday. It was just chaos, literally chaos. At some point, I wondered if there were police officers or if the government was bothered with what was happening. Only to discover later into the show that actually, yes, the police were there, but they had been reduced to just mere spectators. If you remember the day before, when there was a candlelight in honor of Brian Chira, the numbers were overwhelming. So many people turned up, so many young people. The TikToker community came out bigly, so to speak. And I mean, that should have been an indication to tell the authorities what would have been expected during the burial. And remember, these are young people who are in the Gen Z generation that, in my view, I feel are not exactly contained. Like, I mean, these are people who have cut themselves a certain amount of freedom that only they can control. Or I don't really have a way to explain the liberty perception that the Gen Zs have, because they kind of don't care what systems have been there, and they will express themselves freely and openly, which is something that is in one way admirable, because then you get to know what's going on with their minds. But the whole entire episode of the candle lighting should have been something of an indicator to tell the authorities what they would expect then, during the burial. Now, so at the burial, overwhelming numbers, so many young people. And this was the first kind of a burial that I would say seemed to have been organized just by the young people, or conducted by just the young people. I tried to look at the videos coming out of that burial, and there's hardly, 10 faces that you can count of people that are old. Everywhere you look is just very, very young people who had taken up the responsibility. As I credit their union and their unity of purpose and their coming together, a few things also stand out that we must, talk about. It doesn't have to be chaotic, for things to be done. I don't feel like, Brian Chira got the respect that he deserves when everybody made the whole entire event a chaotic episode. Like, nobody was being controlled. Like, people would not follow order. Like, even the prayers, nobody listened to the prayers. It was even chaos, even having Otile Brown, who was performing a song that was a Brian Chira's favorite. One Call, that song, One Call. And so Otile had offered to perform that. But even getting to the podium for him to perform, or the space where he was supposed to perform, was chaos. Like he couldn't get to that spot. And even when he got up there, like the crowd was just noisy and screaming and shouting and wailing and just chaos, you know. It became worse when they went to the graveside. Like, I mean, you could hear people ask, where are the shovels? Even the grandmother was like caught between the whole of this chaos that she looked overwhelmed and lost in the melee that was going on. And therefore, this is something that I think is a wake-up call. As far as I'm concerned, this is a wake-up call to the government of Kenya to realize that the youth, in their numbers, have a whole new system that needs to be organized in a certain way. Otherwise, if things go the way they are, then the future portends a very, very gloomy picture, because that exercise of freedom, which is great, if not tempered with some order, can be very, very dangerous to progress. I'm fearing, and this is just my personal fear, we've seen chaos erupt when politicians are booed. In some instances, even the president has been booed. And for me, that is an indicator of a very, very dangerous trend that, if not taken care of right now, and we're not saying that people should not express themselves. I'm for expression. I'm for people speaking their mind. But I'm just saying that the exercise of that freedom needs to come with some element of responsibility and a little bit of order, so that you can allow for whatever is in the program to actually go ahead. I am sure if the government had looked at Brian Chira's death and burial as one that is as important to the youth as it is when another big shot who is probably a political figure dies, then you would have seen probably more order, because then there would have been more police, more involvement, and therefore, some more bigger dignitaries would have been there who would probably have brought in an element of respect or order or calmness, or toned down just the way people just behaved and carried themselves around. I saw Honorable Peter Salasia, who is a young member of parliament there, but even his coming in was like just one of the young people coming in, one of the Gen Zs coming into the funeral. And it did not create any opportunity for order or any that kind of thing to be done. So in my feeling, I feel I would love to commend the young people for coming together and giving Brian Chira the decent company that anybody would have while being escorted to the arresting place. And everybody who also, went in to support in any way, shape or form, but also request that in future, God forbid, any other big young person on such social media platforms loses his life, and such an occasion comes up, I would really want to appeal to the young people, the Gen Z, the youth, the TikTok community, the social media community, to exercise some bit of restraint in matters of how they express themselves. Of course, as a TikToker community, everybody was out there with their phones, with their cameras, with all, everybody wants, because that's what they do every day. wherever they are, they pull out their phone, they show off, they show what is going on, they share their experiences, they go live on TikTok so people get to see what is happening. So I can understand that, but I just feel that some little level of control would have made that event a more decent, respectful passage for Brian Chira. Well, I will conclude it there and say rest in peace, Brian Chira. Remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel, The Tony Shira Show, and of course, follow me on TikTok at Tony Shira. Thank you so much, and let's do this again.